The problem with HR is that for a long time, it has been put in a bad place.
Some of the other functions, if you look at draw parallels, then they have a lot more black and white way of operating. When it comes to people or talent, that's where a lot of gray comes into play as well.
If you compare the 5 tectonic plates of enterprise software, right? I mean, finance, HR, manufacturing, CRM, whatever, customer-facing, CX, want to call it, or purchasing. The biggest impact in a company, if I want to deploy, shall I say the 2-letter word?
Go for it.
If I should employ AI, is in HR.
A lot of organizations today are just focusing on what's my AI strategy. It's not a replacement for your business strategy.
Biggest transformation we'll see, you can put the marker down 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, will be in HR. HR professionals should not be afraid of the change, because the change will free up so much. Because if you don't take a risk right now, you're becoming the risk.
Every time I feel that, things are consolidating and we are in for a good run, and then suddenly all the disruptions come across.
The hamster wheel keeps running and running and running, and we are the hamsters, hopefully not.
On the Humanscope, we have Holger here, and Holger, we've been wanting to plan this for a long time. We've had some amazing conversations on the Humanscope. Personally, I love hosting this because you get to talk about human at the center of all the stuff that's happening around in the world of work, people and work. And we've had some amazing guests share their heart out on this show. So I hope that we have a great candid conversation today.
I feel the pressure now. I look forward to this. Hope I can live up to the expectations.
No, I'm pretty sure it'll be great. All my interactions with you have always been insightful. I've taken back something like that.
Adding to the pressure. Adding to the pressure. No, it's fun. I'm looking forward to this. Yeah.
But let's start with what got you into this industry first, because you've done your engineering, we've worked with large multinationals, advised startups, you've been personally into research and, doing a fair bit of advisory, consulting. But if you were to rewind back a few decades, what got you excited about this space?
That's a great question in general, the space. But I recently emptied my first office box where I had things in there. And I had a Computerwoche, that was in Germany, from 1988.
Wow.
Which I kept because I thought it's so exciting what's happening right now. And the exciting thing that wasn't, sorry to geek out and get techie, is the future of personal computing going to be DOS, which was established, Windows, which was popular, or OS2, which was a safe, secure option, right? So, and it was so fundamental that my then CRM startup, we built multi-platform software that we were able to deploy for all 3 platforms because there was no clear winner. So it was an interesting exercise. And summer 2013, I started with Constellation Research, covering high-level enterprise acceleration. I'm very lucky we're a small company. We can have vast coverage areas, which combines, gives me a unique perspective, of course, future of work, which is HCM systems, right? With HR core, payroll, workforce management, talent management, benefits more in the US, right? Super interesting area. I used to do this in my last corporate job. But then also closer to my application development, when do enterprise need to build new applications? So what is in the technology to build something new? Because the business best practices are always being newly established, which has always been the exciting thing for me in my software career, is like to build how far can you stretch the elastic, right? Because if you build something too advanced, nobody's going to use that, right? People are saying, yeah, it's the right direction, but I'm not there yet, right? If it's too conservative, people are saying, where's the vision, where you're going, you want to buy somebody else, and so on. And now I can write and research and talk to the companies who are stretching the elastic, which is super, super exciting. And so I find myself in Singapore in 2026.
Wow, that's quite a journey. That's quite a journey. But what do you personally loved, if you were to look back? Is it the building part or is it the analyst part?
I have a common thread on that, right? So my goal is really, can I sell for itself after a day, after a week, after a month, have I made a difference, right? For the people I interacted with, for the companies I advised. So have I made the planet, which sounds a little preposterous, right? But have I, on my little level, have I made the planet a better place, right? And the really rewarding things is when people come back to you months, years after. Keep a secret. Sometimes I don't remember them. Okay, it's like, you did this presentation, that advisory, you wrote this report that really resonated with me, that made such a difference. And say, I'm so happy about this. Tell me more. And then it's nice to see the impact from that, right? So that's what motivates me. It doesn't matter if it's software or if it's working as an analyst.
Yeah, it's always fulfilling when you get referred back for the work that you've done in the past, and it's impacted businesses, lives of people. That's the real change. But you've had like a front row seat on what's happening in the world of work, be it technology, software, be it transformation, people practices, leadership, all of that. So I think it's going to be very exciting to get your thoughts when you put them out. Specific to role of HR, role of CHRO, and there is a huge talk, Holger, about how that's going to change, how that's going to transform. And you've also talked about AI picking up multiple workflows in HR, and that's going to be very real. It's already happening. It's taking place. It's not something of the future. Where does this role go then?
Yeah, I think roles constantly change, right? So nothing for HR people to be afraid of, right? The problem with HR is that for a long time it has been put in a bad place, right? And it comes, and sorry if I'm geeking out here again on computer enterprise software history, right? I mean, if you remember, the first standard software was in finance. The second area was, it's a close race between manufacturing and HR, but not every company is a manufacturing company. Everybody is an HR company, right? And it was so new technology-wise that this thing got formed, and again, no offense to the people who work in that function, which is called HRIT. Yeah. Right? So HRIT was a trusted technology advisor, dotted lines to CHRO, to CIO, to make sure that HR is working, keeps the lights on, and so on, which led to a certain point, and every HR professional needs to answer that honestly for themselves, to an abdication of the technology savviness that every other CXO in the enterprise needed to have, right? A head of manufacturing, even so it was as early as HR, there is no manufacturing IT, right? There is no CRM IT, there is no purchasing IT. They make technology decisions by themselves, are comfortable with it. Of course, make mistakes, learn from them, hopefully, don't get fired about them. The HR people never had this luxury, for whatever reason, have not developed that. At least that's what HR professionals tell me, like, oh, let me talk to my HR IT person, right? Or my person IT for that, right? Instead of saying, all right, that's interesting technology, I need to learn that, I need to understand that, I need to master that, to what I think is fulfill the function, right? I would prefer HR people not be called HR people, but people, the chief people officers, right? Because they're in charge of the people, right? Not the human resource, but the people. And technology changes define so much the quality of the work, the productivity of the work, of the people in the enterprise. With the regulation, which is for in finance as well, since 2006, when Sarbanes-Oxley passed, we wouldn't have any mergers, any acquisitions, any divestments, because somehow finance still has the escape velocity to do strategic things. And it's really, really hard for HR. And hopefully that's going to change, because if you compare the 5 tectonic plates of enterprise software, right? I mean, finance, HR, manufacturing, CRM, whatever, customer-facing, CX, want to call it, or purchasing, right? The biggest impact in a company, if I want to deploy, shall I say the 2-letter word?
Go for it.
If I should employ AI, is in HR. Because first of all, the lever is the biggest. Right? Every employee uses HR functions, right? Everybody either is self-service or is a manager. So if I do something right on that, I do good to the company in terms of what I research, enterprise acceleration with technology. The next thing is HR is not terribly complex. With no offense against that. Right? But like if you think about what is already written down in the employee handbook, right? If you make that available through an agent for conversational user experience, how much offload can you achieve to not being sent to the divisional departmental HR person who's there and often ends the conversations as, thank you, Pushka, for coming. It was so great to talk to you. Glad your family's fine. And by the way, your question is in this wonderful employee handbook, which we spent a 5-digit amount with this creative agency to make it so much more appealing, right? And Pushka will also say, yeah, good. Next time I'll still come for the chat. However, right, we know we have some generations, almost 2 in the workforce now, who don't want to have the personal part, right? Who prefer to send a text, fire off a text and get an answer and not meet the person in person. So I think that will help the whole conversational UX. So more people, relatively easy. There's very complex stuff, don't misunderstand me. Relatively, if you compare sort of like manufacturing where you produce 1,000 cars the wrong way, that does not happen in HR, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you send letters out to the wrong people, but communication, everybody does. It's not a complexity to HR. So I think there's a high level that the biggest transformation we'll see, you can put the marker down 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, will be in HR. And HR professionals, in my view, people professionals, I'll say it myself wrong, should not be afraid of the change because the change will free up so much. And that's the first priority of all we'll see with AI, to get the drudgery, to get the easy, low-hanging fruit, the repetitive work that nobody really wants out of the way. And that will free up room to do much more of the more strategic things in people management, right? Which is on the talent management side, the coaching side, on the nurturing side, and all the good stuff, which usually in many cases, HR professionals say there's not enough time for, there's not enough budget for, right? So the savvy organizations will still realize, oh my God, I have this incredible capability and new possibilities enabled by AI. But the function will not be always assuming, like in every function, I have the right talent set in my HR division and with my HR people, that I will use that to get more and better and more loyal and more motivated, I hate the word engaged people in my enterprise and use HR people for that. And they should be ready for that transformation, which I think personally is an exciting transformation for them.
Yeah, lovely. I've always felt, Holger, that some of the other functions, if you look at draw parallels, then they have a lot more black and white way of operating. Like if you take finance, it's either black or white. You go by the rules, right? There's very little. Of course, you would put your judgment on top of it, but there are scenarios that are pretty well defined. Similarly, if you go into sales, the processes are well defined, and yes, you add a bit of creativity on top of it now. Yes. But it is
a lot of creativity.
Lot of creativity onto things. Ops, for example, you have processes black and white. When it comes to people or talent, that's where a lot of gray comes into play as well.
Yes, we talk about people, individuals, right, with all their pros and cons and so on, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, behind every interaction in the enterprise, there's people too.
We're talking about role of CHRO or talent leaders, if I was to put it. Which aspects you feel, Holger, are going to get impacted or automated more? And is there a shift in time spent and energy spent that you're clearly anticipating that would happen from people's side? Because you looked at different functions of talent management, people, agenda. Where do you feel automation will happen more rapidly and what that might mean for the larger role?
Yeah, so we can see that across the functions, right? HR and employee and manager self-service, right, is going to become a conversational experience, right, for the better of everybody involved, right? Paycheck, payroll-related questions, same thing, right? And then come more complex use cases, but we see also this in the high volume on the talent acquisition side, right, where nobody had time to pass all the resumes, nobody had time to talk to people, nobody could catch up on qualifying people, right? There's going to be interesting scenarios there where candidate agents are speaking to hiring company agents and who's going to be the better agent, what's going to come out of that. So lots of questions, but lots of possibilities there as well. The whole talent management area hopefully is going to change, right? Because the problem has been that there's a fragmentation of the data that's available in the enterprise. And surprisingly, I managed to do what analytics never managed to do, to get all the data of the enterprise available. And back you said when I started as an analyst, right, what's something I wanted to build, I didn't have the time to build, which I call the talent depth chart. which is very common in sports, for instance. So when team game is going on and somebody, God forbid, gets injured or doesn't play up to their potential, who's the person I can put in this role?
Yeah.
Right. So instead of like thinking and whatever, there's like the setup of the team and who could play in that position. Who's the next person to come in there? Exactly the same thing should be happening in the enterprise. Right? I have positions, I have people, very few people connect positions and performance, right? That's where it already starts because, hey, these are different systems, we can't bring them together. But then the key thing is like, how do I move the right people to the right jobs? How do I chart what their capabilities are? How far can I use the learning elastic? How much are they motivated, right? They might be riding towards their retirement in 2 years and say, I don't need to know that next management challenge course, whatever. Please leave me where I am, right? But that's the interesting thing to understand. Where is the right talent in the enterprise on which job, and then reassess that, right?
Yeah.
And understand I might need to move some people, which I don't even know, right? So at every job post opening, there should be the best candidate for a manager in their current team, because it might be someone who's in their team who secretly, not openly, might be hoping for that job and is disappointed somebody from the outside can because they saw themselves for the right or wrong reasons in that job, right? Who knows? So in the manager span, because that's super easy, right? Or close that job, I open the other job, right? I didn't even know that person was able to do that. In whatever the organizational part, if it's the location, the team, the country, where transfer is also very easy, which just has to go to the country manager, CEO, to who's all working in the company, right? Because we know, Asia Pac has such big talent, and for many people motivated in multinational companies is that if they work hard, prove themselves, show their talent, they might get the chance to work in North America, in Europe, or wherever it is, work internationally outside of their country. Overseeing that talent is terrible from a talent learning perspective, growth perspective, retention perspective that you can have. So talent depth chart. Now with data lakes, we have the capability to the first time do this mapping really, really easily.
Yeah.
Right? Because for the first time, all the data of the enterprise is coming together for AI. Right, which is the funny thing. You couldn't get it together for anything else. But for AI, hey, there's such a big upside. We have to do this. Right, it's very interesting to see.
Sometimes the mental barriers need to get disrupted, and suddenly you start seeing so many opportunities that lie ahead. I think many organizations today are wanting to dive into this whole journey of skills-based orchestration of their workforce planning, skills-based compensation, skills-based learning we've been doing. But there's a lot of work on the talent management side that we are seeing. The whole piece that I was trying to bring forward was Asia Pacific, and People Matters does its Sherpa research every year. That's the largest contribution on tech and transformation for organizations. Close to about 1,300 organizations participate every year as part of it. And one piece that we are seeing building, especially on the enterprise software, is on the HCM side, far more organizations are going for best of breed. Far more organizations are totally comfortable today on having a hybrid strategy on their tools that they're wanting to use. We've, I think, gone from this whole era of having a complete unified approach and unified platform to now organizations, close to 60% of them saying we're totally fine having one employer of record and the base data software. Rest everything we are happy to experiment. Where do you feel is the right mix, and is this the right direction that organizations are looking at?
I think every CXO, like every chief people officer, has to make the call in the organization if they want to integrate and become the master of the integration and get the best of breed capabilities, right? If they differentiate themselves, make their life better, increase employee retention, whatever all the benefits are, versus living with a suite which might be only 60 to 70 to 80% to the best of breed, right? And what we've seen is that the elastic has a little bit snapped, right? Sarbanes-Oxley has killed a lot of startup innovation. There's less startup innovation in HR than ever in this decade, right? Let's not forget that, right?
Really?
Yeah.
You feel so?
Oh yeah, compared to the 2000s. Yeah. Compared, like,
Yeah,
because it's very hard to grow software companies anyway.
Agree.
But then when you have to go public and the burden to go public is even higher, you just don't get access to the capital that you need to grow further, right? And here's the dirty secret of all best of breed companies: as they grow, they become suites. Right? Because the first thing the customer will say, look, I have this thing. Why would you not do this, right? I mean, great example, as we're allowed to mention vendors, right? Cornerstone on Demand, right? Learning Leader, right? Was offering, is offering, because customers asked, like, our HR core system is a better HR core system in Europe.
Yeah.
Right. So you should listen to your customer, right? But like every successful company becomes a suite company, ultimately, because like we have gravity on planet Earth. There's one rule so far, which has always been there in enterprise software, is that in the long run, the suites will always win. Right? Sarbanes-Oxley took, unfortunately for enterprise, a lot of the push of best of breed away because startups cannot get the financing easily comparatively. There's fewer startups, fewer challenges. The biggest one you mentioned, with employer of record, comes with taming complexity, which is not in the software.
Yeah.
Right? So the complexity is to have holding hiring companies and to benefit of one of the other everlasting things, right? With globalization, we can talk about globalization happening, not happening, right? Why is employer of record doing so well? Because I successfully take the complexity out of the world of I need to have 5 people in Argentina, 3 people in Ecuador. How am I going to do this, right? If I'm going the traditional way of planting the flag, I need to hire someone. How do I hire someone in a country which I don't know? It has to be the right person. If the wrong person, I lose at least 1 or 2 years. I have to at least move 1 million in the country. And what do I get out of this? And with the employment of record, with people being much more mobile, I might be able to even transfer someone who said, I always wanted to work in Ecuador, right? Back to the talent depth chart, right?
Absolutely.
Here's the Ecuador fan, the Ecuador history, and say like, hey, don't you want to go back home and build something up there? So that's the exciting thing happening. And so the suites always come back. Yeah. What happens is now is that the stack is getting much more vertical, right? So, and AI is powered by data gravity, right? I can build a better agent if there's more data because I know more, right? Everybody talking about context, we can talk about context, but it doesn't matter, right? So, and that favors the suites, right? Who has more data, right? And HR by itself is in a traditional problem that you know what someone's paid, you know the performance rating, but you don't know the value creation in the enterprise, right? You don't know the salesperson has made their quota. You don't know the call center person, what's their drop call rate is. You don't know the finance person, or you might the rating, but not really how much revenue have they overseen, how much account pays the receiver. So for everything, it's missing. So the data lakes will bring that together again. But if the data lakes from different vendors, you have an integration problem not only on a high level of different applications that you best of breed do, which we know well, right? And there's integration vendors to help you. No, you have a data integration part, and your agents will not have the visibility into that. Yeah, so it's getting harder and harder to opt for best of breed, as long as the suites are being good enough. And the suites are all coming, right? Last year, everybody and their mother, I'm jokingly saying, like in the ERP world, from SAP to Oracle to Workday, announced their data lakes.
Yes.
Right? So to create the data foundation. And ERP has the whole data. ERP never gave even the HCM model, what's the contribution to the value creation of the company, right? Because you could try it, ERP had the data. The technology wasn't there, and the data warehouse, which was the technology of the 90s to solve all these questions, was way too slow for the speed of business, right? Data warehouse, if you want to have significantly insight, would be 2-3 months of open heart surgery to get that, which nobody wants, not even for your data warehouse, to get that data and insight available for you.
There's a huge talk, Holger, going on build versus buy, because what's also happened is AI has given power to organizations, and you have open source models available. Anyways, a lot of the product tech companies, and I don't want to name them, a lot of them are customers.
Oh, I'm the one who's naming? You don't? Okay, it's fine. It's fine.
Many of them have created wrappers. Their releases are at least like 8 months, 12 months, 16 months down the line. The world is changing so fast, and the CIOs and the CTOs are like, but why do you need to wait 12 months, 16 months? Why can't we build it in-house? We've got the power as well. You had an argument that, maybe the power was not there earlier. The other big piece that a lot of people talked about was experience. And every time you talk to an HCM player, they're like, no, but I think the seamless experience. Today, experience is headless. Right? So it doesn't matter where you are consuming. You have different places in the flow of work where you're consuming it. So there is this huge piece going on, at least in Asia, and would love to know in US, everywhere, on build versus buy. What's your candid view on this entire piece?
Excellent question. Yeah, so build versus buy has been going on quite a while, right? But it kind of like got turbocharged with AI, right? So build versus buy with low code, no code, the citizen developer, right, was always a growing industry, right? Always say, if you want to own your automation destiny, you need to do low code, no code in the past, right? The turbocharge now is that vibe coding is coming also through citizen developers. So a pure prosa, first year business school document that says what should be doing something is getting you very, very, very close. And remember, like you said before, AI now, at least in the initial phase, all about taking the drudgery out, right? The drudgery before, 5 years, 6 years before, if you were so unhappy about the way how your company handles glasses that you would say, I'm going to look for a good no-code tool. I'm going to learn that in a weekend, was so much harder than it is today, where you basically only have to describe what's happening. So the bar to build your own automation is dramatically lowered. Now, of course, some people are getting heart attacks and gray hair about this, right? Can't happen to me anymore. I have enough, right? The CIOs, right? The same fear, like how do they get to the data? What are they building? What they're doing, right? Super concern, right? Standardization, the only way how the CIOs got ahead of low-code, no-code is by standardized tools and making sure that the right access is there. The same is there for the AI part. Now, the super interesting thing which is happening, let's take one step further on the thing which is happening right now, which is called OpenClaw, right? So Austrian developer went on a break for a year, came back and said, what's going on here? So why don't I use AI to automate AI? Yeah. So that's the interesting thing with this desktop project, which is now part of OpenAI, called OpenClaw, where basically you as an individual give access to something, and you have the access, right? We'll talk about this in a second, why that doesn't work so easy for the enterprise, right? Give access to AI, which then generates agents, which by themselves can talk to other OpenClaw agents, right? So all of a sudden you have an agentic network doing things for you. Now, what could go wrong, right? Lots of things can go wrong, as well as they can go wrong as you do it, right? I mean, scammed, wrong, poofed, access, whatever, getting to your bank logins, whatever existed before, right? So that's still happening, that risk. The question is always is AI better than the human error rate? Yeah. If it's worse, big disaster. But if it's better than the human error rate and with the potential to learn more, with the fact that it doesn't have good or bad days, that it doesn't go on vacations, that it doesn't change jobs, right? It's bits ones and zeros, which if you pay for them where they live, they're going to be happily working, transforming, and going on. Last week I was at NVIDIA's GTC conference in San Jose, right? Some people call it the Woodstock of AI. What does NVIDIA do? They want to get new software. They're providing NemoClaw, right? Everybody's OpenClaw pieces. If you go to the RSA company, Cisco's providing a security claw, and there's a startup which started a science claw and so on. So everybody's automating vertically on top of that to make it safe for the enterprise, right? So to quote Jensen Wang on that, he said every enterprise needs to have an OpenClaw strategy, right? And we'll see that quickly evolving on what CIOs will allow, clamp it down, not allow it, gradually allow it, and there will be the enterprise offering of doing this, right? The biggest hurdle for us to adopt it, right, is how do I get a test environment?
Yeah.
Right? And everybody say, oh, just get a Mac Mini, right? That's the hardware. How do I get, how do I get a debit card, credit card with $100 if I want to invest the $100, right? And then burn it, right? Without affecting my credit score. Who has enough emails that reading my emails is good enough and realistic enough, right? So there needs to be someone who, for the consumer, saying for the consumer side for a while, neutralizes your digital artifacts in a neutral enough way for you to say in a safe instance, I'm testing this out if this works. Yeah. Because the upside is fantastic, right? The upside is incredible. Yeah. Of course. We had our AI forum last week, and I don't want to mention the name because I don't have the authority, but one of the leading AI researchers heavily involved at Google he just said, okay, I don't care. I'll let this run for 2 days. And nothing bad happened. He had $4,000 more in his portfolio, which he didn't understand why, but it was legit. So that's not a bad $2,000 a day. That will make some people listen, right? I don't know how much volume was under it, but yeah, if we'll pay for it and so on. But that is where the interesting thing starts, when AI is creating AI, right? So, and also potentially the Skynet doomsday thing, right? So, but yeah. Hopefully the guardrails are in place. But I'm talking too long.
Yeah. No, we'll leave it for the guardrails, and I'm sure there are enough number of people acting on that as well.
Always remember where the plug is.
Yeah, of course, the plug. Stretching that again, Holger, what would be a clear build versus buy piece in today's context? Because the power is far more, and the CIOs and the CTOs are clearly questioning HR tech investments now more than ever.
Overall enterprise software investments,
absolutely,
right? Because CEOs and boards are saying everything is getting cheaper at the same level, right? So I see cost efficiencies everywhere. The only thing that's getting more expensive is software,
exactly,
and it does less, right? And so it means the same decision before, right? So on the one side, and that's a good thing, you will have an ERP system, and you will have to hold these vendors, strangle them, and say, "Give me the roadmap. Tell me what you're going to ship. What's the functionality?" Then you have to make the assessment, is that in the range of things, right? Because nothing looks worse than you build your own project, right? Blood, sweat, and tears over the weekends and so on. You go live, and then your ERP vendor, your HCM vendor comes along and say, "Oh, by the way, here it is." Right, supported, running at hundreds of companies, right? It's like, I could have done this other thing, right? So hold your vendors accountable to roadmaps, right? And of course, we know by now, traditionally vendors have been worried about giving roadmaps because of the money, financial part. Now everybody has a fine print down. If, God forbid, another pandemic happens, or whatever it is, right? So the irony on roadmaps, by the way, is, right, with AI coming, I've never seen such roadmap kill ever. And nobody complained. Nobody complained because the technology upside right away was there. And I think, like, how ironic, right? So moving from mainframe to client server, I was old enough to live that. And people say, no, not enough, roadmap wouldn't go, right? Client server was cheaper. Nobody said, yes, forget about the old stuff, right? So for the first time ever in my 30 plus years in enterprise software, nobody complained that nothing was being delivered, but please do AI. Almost irrational, right? So if what your standard software vendor is not providing, right, the question is, can you build what you want? And the barrier for building this is getting much lower. It was a conference, won't name the vendor, where a CHRO was on stage and said, look, we built 2 agents ourselves. And I went afterwards to her and said, congratulations, and they're delivering value for them. And she said, well, I didn't want to say it in space. We have about 110 agents running.
Wow.
Built on the platform.
Wow.
Yeah. So own your automation destiny if what you're going to get from somebody else is not what you need and what you want. It's been easier than ever before. Don't get in trouble with your CIO, with your CISO, and the other guys, right? There's enough standardized versions. Push for a standardized version for the enterprise. Your colleagues and the other functions are in the same situation where people need to do something, build something, which is more efficient than what they could do before. And you don't want to be the company which already, congratulations, has a low-code, no-code tool in the enterprise, but your employees have to fight with your competitor who's using AI vibe-coded, low-code, no-code integrated solutions because they're going to be faster. They're going to out-automate you, which is, of course, not where you want to be. Right? And this acceleration of everything is what is fantastic, incredible, fearful. You can mention any word in this because the transformation is so much faster than it ever has been.
Couldn't agree more. I think there's so much that is happening all around us, and it's also evident that organizations at a business plan level are having to change much faster, really transform. AI is one part of it, but also the industry dynamics is also pushing it further. We can't blame everything on AI. There's so much changing around in business environments itself. And I think a lot of organizations today are just focusing on what's my AI strategy. It's not a replacement for your business strategy. Core is business strategy at the end of it, right? You can have a layer on top of that.
At the end of the day, AI is nothing but software.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just another way of doing software, much more powerful. Yeah, we have the first thing people will see, there's a new UX, right? Conversational UI is the big thing, right? For the first time, we have a human way of saying what we want, right? I mean, the keyboard, right? That's a funny thing. The keyboard is designed to make us type slowly. Yeah, because originally keyboards were operated by professionals who could type so fast that they would clog the hammers, right? And that was the worst place for productivity that could happen, that somebody who could make 500 characters per minute, right, would have to reach over, potentially workplace hazard, right? What happens if you injure your fingers, they get ink on them and whatever, move the hammers back and lose, God forbid, 50, 60, 100 strokes per minute there, right? So the keyboard was spread out that human fingers could not type faster than gravity. If we would have a different gravity on this planet, we would have a different keyboard. Now the super irony is, like, when was the last time you saw someone in enterprise who was typing on typewriter? That's over, right? So we still use for backward compatibility, right?
Yeah.
Generations of people still learn the QWERTY keyboard for no apparent reason. It's one of the things how business and best practices stay stuck on a paradigm which is no longer the underlying technology. And that's very much the same thing if you take client-server software to cloud software, whatever. So that's where the danger is of keeping things the same way. So the resistance to change is massive, but the upside of doing things is super, very promising from my perspective.
No, I remain a big optimist around this, that, it's going to really, really give us the power. But yeah, I think all the HCM players put together have a lot of thinking to do.
And learning, right? Because the question is like, it's questions we had before, right? We talked about APIs 15 years ago, right? How granular do your APIs have to be? Do you want to know lots of little APIs and have a Chinese menu of APIs, right? Or do you want to have like one API where you can say everything and then routes out where it wants to go? The same thing with agents, right? What we see is the first package agents come to companies. Companies are have to test it carefully. Oh, they're working. People like them. After 2 weeks, the trust is there. They're running, and then where's the next agent? Where are the next set of agents? And it took the vendors 3, 4, 5 months to build them.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's a factor in, of course, again, where the roadmap is there. If you only see 3 or 4 packaged agents coming this year, you probably have to look at a tool which allows you to build your own agents.
Yeah. And I think people are also getting smarter, because they are also asking vendors, okay, fine, you promised me this. Where are you on that journey? You said you're going to be building it, but what you're doing is essentially going and buying some of that from the market itself. That means there is a question on your own ability to nail some of that. So there is that trust equation that is getting questioned and pressure tested as well. As I don't know what market cap valuations have to do with some of that, but I think the investor community is extremely smart around this space, trying to analyze markets and cut through, seeing what companies are doing.
One thing, like I said, look at the roadmap.
Yeah.
Right? Is the direction correct, right? You might not get it by a quarter plus or minus, but is the vendor delivering? And you trust the vendor to deliver, right? And you build roadmap trust like AI agent trust over a number of interactions, right? And you look at them, and I encourage everybody to work closely with your vendor, know the people who are delivering, and talk to them. Because the big advantage of the roadmap is you can align your internal go lives, right?
Yeah.
You're not doing decisions in a black box. This is what's right for us. And then you realize, oh, there's a gap here, there's a gap there. Oh, we have built something to close the gap, and now it's shipping, right? You want to align your rollout with the capability advancement through the roadmap of the vendor. That's what the smart thing is. But if the vendor is going the wrong way, it's not a good direction to follow, right? All the way of saying, okay, I need my own tool, all the way to saying, is there another vendor who's going in my way? And potentially even ship, which people don't do, ship. Because one of the big things which happening, not just to build low-code, no-code applications getting much easier, it's going to be also so much easier to move to a different vendor.
Yes.
Right? Because the implementation gets zapped by that, right? So for all of a sudden, your conference room pilot is like, generate the setup of my ERP HCM system of the most admired companies. And it's no longer like, how would you like to do this in the implementation? But it's like, the CHRO can say, look, we admire this company. I'm coming from this company. I got hired because I want to transform this company. Guess what? What a fallacy. You hire a leader to transform the company like the other one, but the software system is not in any way enabling us. Now, if I could have the same software system and I could somehow neutralize the setup, because the irony in this whole industry is the ERP vendor, the HCM vendor owns the setup.
Yeah.
In most cases, the startups often don't pay attention to it for performance and for setup and for support reasons, right? But they could generate a mix match of the most admired HR core, payroll, compensation, talent management, recruiting company, and mix and merge all that together. And then the executive can go in and say, hey guys, we admire those companies. This is how they work. Yeah. Tell me why we can't work like this. So much faster implementation. So much faster. very exciting. And this reduces the cost of ownership of having sunk and being X year on vendor Y and so on. So super exciting.
One of the piece that data is showing us is the whole value realization gap that is sort of widening, especially in Asia Pacific. I don't know what's that in US, but more number of organizations are screaming that, what's the real ROI? How am I able to show that? We are getting real questions from business, from our CFOs saying that, what you've been deploying, there are contracts that have escalation on numbers year on year, but is that really delivering?
Absolutely. And there's find me the person who's happy with the ERP vendor, right? Which sounds a little harsh to the ERP vendors, right? But at the core, the problem is, and sorry, I have to go technical a little more, right? The innovation that we're running through is what I call infinite computing. Yeah. So for the first time, computing resources are infinite. And one level, everybody's comfortable, right? We expect to make an Apple, I forgot, what's the Apple video function, FaceTime call to anywhere in the world in video quality. That's the expectation. And it mostly works, right? So we have infinite connectivity thanks to the internet. The next level we talked about is the Hadoop innovation, which means infinite insights. I can store everything and find everything. The other one is we see the billions being spent infinite compute. All of a sudden, there's as much compute as you want for any purpose. Yeah. Running your talent depth chart, a very deterministic problem, or running and building your LLMs or executing your LLMs, right? Infinite computing. On top of that comes what we're at the cusp, which we're doing with OpenClaw, infinite machine learning. I call it machine learning. I didn't call it AI because I don't think we have AI. I call it still machine learning, but fine. Infinite machine learning. And on top of that comes what ultimately is interesting and scary is infinite deep learning, where software can look what the humans are doing, software can look at the people at the shop floor, and then show the robot how to do it, right? So, and massive transformation between, but we have so much faster from infinite connectivity to insights to compute, where we all are in, to infinite machine learning, which basically OpenClaw has done for the consumer, right? So we're quickly going through these curves of adoption of infinite computing. Yeah.
Exciting time. Every time I feel that, things are consolidating and we are in for a good run, and then suddenly all the disruptions come across.
The hamster wheel keeps running and running and running, and we are the hamsters. Hopefully not, right? Yeah, absolutely right. They said like Computer Week 1988. It was so exciting back then, right? Almost 40 years ago, and still exciting now, and it's more exciting now than deciding between DOS and Windows and OS 2. Yeah.
No, absolutely on that. What kind of leaders you feel, Holger, we need to sort of architect to lead in this new age of so much tech data being available, so many agents playing, the conversations that's happening across the CXO circles is, if AI is going to take a lot of those decisions, then what do you leave it to humans for doing that? Especially when AI is training AI is taking far more decisions in automated agentic environments as well. We would soon reach to cognitive AI as well, which is like the future, possibly, like maybe 4-5 years down the line.
AGI is looming, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What kind of leaders do our organizations need?
Leaders who are ready to act and move fast.
Okay.
Like the famous fail fast, right? Leaders who are ready to take a risk. Yeah, because if you don't take a risk right now, you're becoming the risk. Yeah, if you don't help your company to innovate with technology in the age of AI, we always said that before, if you don't move to cloud, history will not judge friendly to you.
Yeah.
If you don't move to whatever, certain cloud-based packages and so on, the adoption curves were so much slower. Yeah. So for the keynote for tomorrow, like I'm giving a little preview, right? I'm not sure if we're going to have time to build a slide, but the interesting thing is like, originally for mankind to do something, it was human power. Yeah. What was the big innovation to go beyond human power was to get animal. So the human got disintermediated, right? How many horses can you put in front of that plow? How many cows can do work for you? How many elephants, to stick with Asian perspective, can you use to replace the humans, to augment and make the human better, right?
Yeah.
We lived for this till 1720, 1760, when the steam machine came along.
Yeah.
Right? The steam machine made for the first time animal and human work not necessary and practical, right? How could locomotives run around, right? Because you couldn't get the horses, couldn't get the people for doing this, right? The downfall was you had to have the energy resource with you. You had to have the coal typically or the wood with you in order to power that, right? So, and that limited the adoption of that. But I looked at like the UK was mostly steam, and I'll quote by looking it up this morning, actually coming here. The UK was steam 1860, 1880. Yeah. The second, third largest economies at the time were China and India, and there was none whatsoever, right? And they still did pretty well, right? And then you see, I have it for the top 10 economies, right? Different levels of adoption. It favored the ones who had coal. It favored Germany, it favored France, right? Because you needed to have coal to run that steam engine, right? Nothing happened to the Indian and Chinese economies in the sense because the disruption was in transportation, which slowly would get there, right? I mean, steam locomotives would run till the 1960s. I love locomotives, right? The next big innovation was electricity, which got over thanks to the connection that you didn't have to have the energy source available where you had the machine, right? Now we can talk about digitization. Everybody said digital transformation will not be nice to the ones falling behind. I'm not sure how many companies still run only on paper, but I think you can still make it only on paper, right? I mean, small mom and pop shops who do this, right? So now is the big difference from an adoption perspective, right? And let's quickly say the electricity, right? The adoption of electricity was top 10 economies from China, India, Russia, Germany, France, Austria was in there originally, whatever. The adoption to electricity was in 30, 40 years. And the ones who didn't have steam were even faster on electricity. Now, the AI transformation is so big because it disintermediates the knowledge work. Right? I always had to have somebody smart enough, with no offense to the people who may not be, who had studied at a prestigious university, who had this decision to make decisions on premise close to people. AI disintermediates the white-collar jobs. But also, and let's not forget this, it also changes the blue-collar jobs, right? Because if you can have a visual analysis of what people are doing in your factory, in the past you had to describe it, train the robot, took a long time and so on. Now you can just put dots on people or just see them and tell the robot do the same thing like what the humanist does, right? There's a major disruption also for the blue-collar jobs coming from AI. So for the first time, we see a technology which is disrupting on both sides of it, right? So in the physical world with physical AI and on the decision world AI with whatever predictive AI or agentic AI will do to our decision making.
Wow, fascinating times and always exciting to go into the depth of conversations with you, Holger.
Sorry, I went a little technology excursion here, but literally I think we are in the steam engine era of work.
Yeah.
Only that the adoption phase will be so much faster.
Yes.
Yeah, if you think about it, something I realized last week going to NVIDIA, which is all about the GPUs, right? Data gravity, we talked about this, right? Yeah. Data attracts data, more data comes to the data. What I realized last week, showing my learning here, right? There's also GPU gravity. Yeah, more GPUs will come to more GPUs. What if I'm a proud EU sovereign cloud user who is on the 6-year-old NVIDIA GPU, who's doing business with the latest Vera Rubin GPU? Who's going to make the better decision? Which agent is going to outsmart which agent?
Wow.
Right? So I might be proud of being in the EU sovereign cloud, but I better move my data very quickly to the faster GPUs so my agents are competitive to the ones they're dealing with. Right? So it's going to be very, very interesting because we have a new gravity dimension to the success of an enterprise when it comes to both the training and the inference, the execution of models.
Lovely. The challenge, what I see, Holger, is that, we want those dynamic maverick leaders who can fail fast and are agile.
Right, we're talking about the leaders. Yeah.
But the challenge is that, when you look at boards, when you look at capital markets, they would always prefer a stable, well-rounded profile to lead and run.
Yes and no, right?
Yeah.
So scale is very important.
Yeah.
But in times of disruption, scale is not everything, right? So the question to ask, and it's like my second day in business school, right? The difference between efficiency and effectiveness, right? Enterprises are pinned down to efficiency, right? Efficiency is, are we doing things right? We squeeze a little more out here, we scale a little more better, we move. So that is efficiency. And in the efficiency game, you keep forgetting what other ways are there to do things, which is the effectiveness. Are we doing the right thing? The effectiveness question is super, super important right now, right? And you need to have leaders who ask and challenge the effectiveness questions, retool their enterprise. And I think investors stock markets are seeing this, noticing this, right? At the same time, they have to have a readiness and more readiness to fail, because if I find new ways of doing things, I might not have found the right way, right? I might overshoot, right? You know, the famous Klarna story, right? Who let go of all the call center agents, right? 1.5, 2 years ago. I know clearly everybody was like, oh yeah, that was too early, right? But that moment will come again, right? Somebody will let go of many, not all of their call center agents, right? Our work is transforming anyway, too, right? We're moving into the human is supervising X agents. The question is, how many is X, right? You see this where it's most advanced in building software, where it was 1-to-1. Then Google came out a year ago, in December, time flying, right? with their new IDE, right? Which anti-gravity is the name of it, funny name, where for the first time it's more an oversight console, where you oversee the UIs to oversee 4 agents doing stuff continuously for you, and you can put more on them. So the way how we deal with the machines is no longer the one-to-one situation, but it's the one-to-many situation with interesting pieces from a UX perspective, from a human capability perspective. The good news is we are so much able to do more than what the computers in the display would able to do for us, right? So that's comforting. But I think the leaders have to look at the effectiveness question. And I think also, as much as I agree with you in the past, we want scalable, return to investors, 2-3% growth is good. That's no longer, it's clear it's not happening in this age of disruption, transformation that AI enables.
Yeah, I wish we get more boards and larger stakeholders to note that point and look at leaders from that lens as well, because what would have got organizations sustainably here might not be the way to lead in the future. You would need far more leaders who are taking those risks and moving towards transformation. To wrap this up, Holger, 2030, what would be 1 or 2 predictions you would want to put on the people and work industry that, you know what, you predict that this is what would happen?
Funny. 2030 is way too far out. What's happening? I was hoping you would say like 2 years or 3 years. No. So 2030, I think we'll see significant change in the future of work. Right? So our work, AI is going to be ephemeral in everything we do. Right? Barriers will be blown on the way to work. On the way to work, you know what's happening. AI is summarizing to you what's happening that's relevant to you. Pervasion across the channels. Okay. There's no private, there's no home. The good and bad things, right? Work is always going on because you leave work and you let your agents do work. Yes. Right? I mean, it's going to be a fallacy for you, like, I shut down my computer, I'm a good employee, I'm saving energy. I'm not going to wait 2 minutes tomorrow while I get my coffee when I turn it on. No, you better let your computer run. Right? One of the interesting things last week at GTC was Jensen Huang saying, how much credits, how much tokens, right? He's in token industry, but credits, cloud credits, do you want your employee to spend? It's becoming a Silicon Valley hiring situation of developers, because you know, as me only as a developer, which was totally adequate a year ago, is no longer competitive as a developer. So how many tokens can I spend, right? And he said, like, if I hire a $200,000 developer, if I don't give him 100,000 tokens, equivalent, I mean, I'm not leveraging his investment, right? He may not work, be happy. And the same thing will come in the next quarters, months, years. How many tokens can I spend as a supply chain professional, as an HR professional, for the agents which make my work better, right? So leave your computer on. Let your agents do the work. See what they have done on Monday when you come back to work, or whenever the day is when your week starts, right? So significantly more automation with AI. Significantly better outcomes, hopefully.
Exciting times ahead, but a lot more as we talk about it at Tech HR conference in Singapore tomorrow. But always exciting to hear your views with the passion with which you serve the industry, Holger. And here in Asia, we're always excited to read some of that content that comes from your side. And hopefully we all build on it, learn together, and sort of build forward.
It's great to be there, and thanks for having me.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Lovely.
Thank you.